By 2015, BlackBerry's market share had collapsed to less than 1%. A company once worth over $60 billion was now a ghost of its former self. But to understand how, we have to go back to the beginning. In 1984, Mike Lazaridis and Douglas Fregan founded Research in Motion in Waterloo, Ontario. They started in a small rented space, tinkering with electronics. The first device bearing the BlackBerry name was a pager, the BlackBerry 850, released in 1999. It had a tiny keyboard that looked like blackberry seeds. That keyboard became the company's signature. In 2002, BlackBerry launched its first smartphone. It did something revolutionary. It pushed email to your pocket in real time. Corporate workers called it the crackberry because they couldn't put it down. Users typed with both thumbs at lightning speed, a skill called thumb typing. By the mid-2000s, BlackBerry controlled over half the global smartphone market. Executives, politicians, and celebrities all carried one. The device was so secure that President Obama insisted on keeping his BlackBerry after taking office. In 2007, BlackBerry's market capitalization peaked at over $60 billion. Sales hit nearly $20 billion by 2011. The company had thousands of employees and a sprawling campus in Waterloo. It felt unstoppable. But that same year, a new rival appeared, the iPhone. Apple's touchscreen device had no physical keyboard at all. BlackBerry executives dismissed it as a toy. They believed their loyal business customers would never abandon the keyboard. A Canadian engineer stared at a two-way pager in 1999 and saw the future of mobile communication. The BlackBerry 850 hit the market that year. Its tiny keyboard, shaped like the fruit it was named after, felt revolutionary. Emails arrived instantly, pushed directly to the device. No dial-up, no waiting, no desktop required. Corporate users grabbed them by the thousands. By 2002, the first BlackBerry smartphone launched. It combined a phone, email, and organizer in one sleek package. The screen was small. The keyboard was physical. The battery lasted days. Executives called it a crackberry because it was addictive. Wall Street traders typed deals on BlackBerries while walking the floor. In 2007, BlackBerry controlled more than 50% of the global smartphone market. Its market capitalization peaked at over $60 billion that same year. The company's sales hit almost $20 billion by 2011. BlackBerry had 85 million subscribers worldwide at its height. But in June 2007, a different device appeared on the market. Apple's iPhone had no keyboard, no stylus, no physical buttons. It used a touchscreen that could do everything. BlackBerry executives dismissed it as a toy. They believed their loyal business customers would never abandon the keyboard. That belief became the company's blind spot. While Apple added apps and a vibrant ecosystem, BlackBerry stuck to email and BBM. Android phones flooded the market with touchscreens and large app stores. BlackBerry's response was slow. The Storm, a touchscreen phone, launched in 2008 with a buggy clickable screen. A frustrated executive in a Toronto boardroom slammed the Storm prototype onto a table in 2008. The screen didn't register his thumb. He tried again. Still nothing. This was BlackBerry's answer to the iPhone. The Storm launched with a clickable touchscreen that required a physical press to register a tap. Reviewers called it a step backward. Customers returned the device in droves. BlackBerry had spent 2 years developing this response. Apple had sold 6 million iPhones in its first year alone. Meanwhile, Google's Android operating system was spreading like wildfire across dozens of manufacturers. BlackBerry's market capitalization had peaked at over $60 billion in 2007. That was more than the entire Canadian auto industry combined. The company was selling 50 million devices a year by 2011. Corporate users loved the physical keyboard and the encrypted push email. They called them crackberries because they couldn't stop using them. But the world was shifting. Consumers wanted apps, not just email. They wanted big screens and touch interfaces. BlackBerry's App Store in 2009 had just 2,000 apps versus Apple's 100,000. Developers ignored the platform. BlackBerry executives dismissed the iPhone as a toy. They believed their corporate clients would never abandon the keyboard. They were wrong. By 2012, BlackBerry's global market share had collapsed from 50% to less than 5%. The company laid off 5,000 employees in one brutal quarter. Its stock price plummeted from $140 to under $10. A Canadian engineer stared at the wreckage of a once dominant company in 2013. Its stock price had plummeted from $140 to under $10. The fall was breathtaking. But the seeds of destruction were planted years earlier. At its peak in 2007, BlackBerry's market value hit $60 billion. That was more than Ford or General Motors. Sales reached almost $20 billion in 2011. 1 in every 2 smartphones sold on Earth was a BlackBerry. Corporate executives typed furiously on tiny keyboards, pushing emails across continents. The device was called Crackberry for a reason. It was addictive. Users checked their inboxes at dinner tables, in boardrooms, even in hospital beds. BlackBerry had created a global communication revolution. Then, the iPhone appeared in 2007. Steve Jobs held up a glass slab with no buttons. BlackBerry executives dismissed it as a toy. They believed their keyboard was sacred. In contrast, consumers wanted touchscreens. While BlackBerry clung to physical keys, Apple and Android developers built app ecosystems. BlackBerry's response was the Storm in 2008. It had a touchscreen that clicked. Reviewers called it a disaster. Customers returned it in droves. Meanwhile, Google released Android in 2008. By 2010, Android phones outsold BlackBerry globally. BlackBerry's market share began to shrink. The company still made profits, but the foundation was cracking. In 2011, BlackBerry's Playbook tablet launched without email or calendar apps. Corporate users felt betrayed. The board ousted the co-CEOs in 2012. A new CEO promised a turnaround. In 2013. He stood before a sea of analysts holding a prototype. The device still had a physical keyboard, but now a touchscreen too. Wall Street applauded. Investors bought shares again. But the cracks were already spreading beneath the polished stage. BlackBerry's App Store held 70,000 apps in 2011. Apple's had 500,000. Developers abandoned the platform like rats from a sinking ship. Corporate users, once loyal, began carrying 2 phones, one for work, one for life. The BlackBerry 10 operating system launched in January 2013. Reviewers praised its smooth gestures and multitasking. But the app gap was a chasm no software update could bridge. Consumers wanted Instagram, Snapchat, and Angry Birds, not security. BlackBerry's market share slid from 20% to 3% in 2 years. The company posted a $4.4 billion loss in 2013. That was more than its entire revenue from 2 years earlier. In 2014, BlackBerry tried a desperate pivot, a square-screened phone called the Passport. It looked like a passport, thick and wide. Business travelers bought it, but only a few thousand. Meanwhile, Apple sold 10 million iPhones every quarter. Android phones flooded every price tier from $100 to $900. BlackBerry's hardware business hemorrhaged cash. By 2015, the company's market share dropped below 1%. The stock that once traded at $236 now hovered around $7. Employees watched colleagues pack boxes and leave. The Waterloo campus felt like a ghost town. In 2016, BlackBerry stopped making phones altogether. A BlackBerry executive stared at a giant iPhone screen in 2007 and dismissed it as a toy. That moment sealed the company's fate. By 2008, BlackBerry still sold 50 million devices a year, more than half the smartphone market. Its network ran through 550 carrier partners in 175 countries. The company's data centers compressed every email to a fraction of its original size. BlackBerry's servers pushed 2.5 petabytes of data monthly. That was the golden age. In 2009, BlackBerry's App Store launched with just 2,000 apps. Apple's App Store already had 85,000. Developers complained about BlackBerry's fragmented operating system. The company dismissed them as unimportant. Then the storm arrived in 2008. It was BlackBerry's first touchscreen phone. Reviewers called it a disaster. The screen clicked like a mouse button. Customers returned them in droves. BlackBerry's market share began to slide. In 2010, the Playbook tablet launched without native email or calendar. Corporate users were baffled. The Playbook sold fewer than 500,000 units in its first year. Apple sold 15 million iPads. Google's Android phones overtook BlackBerry in global sales by 2011. BlackBerry's CEO at the time insisted the company would adapt. It did not. In 2012, BlackBerry released the Z10, a full-touch phone with a new operating system. Sales were underwhelming. The company wrote down nearly $1 billion in unsold inventory. Employees watched their stock options become worthless. By 2013, BlackBerry had lost 99% of its market value from the 2007 peak. A boardroom in Waterloo, Ontario, saw its crown jewel crumble by 2013. BlackBerry had lost 99% of its market value from the 2007 peak. The fall was swift, but the rise had been breathtaking. In 1999, a tiny pager with a full QWERTY keyboard hit the market. Its keys looked like BlackBerry seeds. Corporate users grabbed it. Push email arrived like magic. Thumbs flew over those tiny keys. The BlackBerry became a status symbol. By 2007, BlackBerry controlled more than 50% of the global smartphone market. Its market cap topped $60 billion. That same year, Apple unveiled the iPhone. BlackBerry's golden age dazzled. Executives typed furiously on their BlackBerries in airports everywhere. The device was addictive. Wall Street worshipped it. Sales hit nearly $20 billion in 2011. But the rot had already set in. The iPhone had no keyboard. It had a touch screen. BlackBerry dismissed it as a toy. Consumers disagreed. Android phones flooded the market. BlackBerry's App Store was a ghost town. Developers fled. Instagram and Snapchat never came to BlackBerry. The Storm, a touchscreen BlackBerry, launched in 2008. Reviewers hated it. The screen clicked oddly. Customers returned it. Meanwhile, Google's Android grew like wildfire. BlackBerry's market share dropped below 1% by 2015. The Passport phone in 2014 was a square oddity. It failed. In 2016, BlackBerry stopped making phones. The hardware era was over. The company pivoted to software and cybersecurity. BlackBerry's legacy is complicated. It pioneered push email and thumb typing. A BlackBerry executive checks email on a flight from Toronto to New York in 2007, tapping 2 thumbs at 40 words per minute. The device in his hand is worth $60 billion to shareholders. But the ground is shifting. A glass slab in California has no buttons at all. It is 2007, and Apple just showed the world a touchscreen iPhone. BlackBerry executives hold a meeting in Waterloo to decide how to respond. They dismiss the iPhone as a toy with a bad battery and no keyboard. Corporate users want push email. They tell themselves, not games. That was the plan. It did not survive reality. By 2008, BlackBerry still sells 50 million phones a year. But the iPhone sells faster. BlackBerry rushes a touchscreen phone called the Storm to market in 2008. The screen clicks when you press it, a mechanical keyboard in glass. Reviewers call it slow and buggy. Customers return it in droves. Meanwhile, Google launches Android in 2008 with a free operating system for any manufacturer. Samsung, HTC, and Motorola flood stores with touchscreen phones running Android. BlackBerry's App Store opens in 2009 with 2,000 apps. Apple's App Store already has 100,000. Developers choose the bigger audience. By 2010, Instagram and Snapchat launch. Both require touchscreens and cameras. BlackBerry has neither. Young consumers buy iPhones and Android phones instead. Corporate users see their kids with touchscreens and start asking for the same at work. Corporate users see their kids with touchscreens and start asking for the same at work. BlackBerry's executives dismiss the iPhone as a toy with a terrible battery and no keyboard. but the toy is selling millions of units each quarter. By 2009, Apple's App Store offers over 100,000 apps. BlackBerry's own App Store, launched in 2009, has less than 2,000. Developers flock to iOS and Android, ignoring BlackBerry's platform. BlackBerry responds with the Storm, its first touchscreen phone. Reviewers call it buggy and unresponsive. Customers return it in droves. Meanwhile, Google's Android arrives on phones from Samsung and Motorola. Android offers touchscreens, apps, and keyboards, but BlackBerry sticks to its physical keys. By 2010, BlackBerry's global market share has fallen from over 50% to 20%. The company's stock price drops by 75% from its 2008 peak. Investors grow restless. In 2011, BlackBerry launches the Playbook tablet. No native email or calendar apps. Sales are dismal. The company writes off $485 million in unsold inventory. In 2012, BlackBerry releases the Z10, a full touchscreen phone running a new operating system. It has too few apps and no physical keyboard. Corporate users reject it. By 2013, BlackBerry's market share is under 3%. The company lays off 4,500 employees. In 2013, BlackBerry attempts to sell itself, but no buyer emerges. The stock price falls below $10, down from $147 in 2008. In 2015, BlackBerry launches the Passport, a square phone with a keyboard. The Passport's square screen and physical keyboard felt like a defiant gesture in 2015. But the world had already moved on. BlackBerry's market share had collapsed to less than 1%. Just 4 years earlier, it had sold nearly $20 billion worth of phones. Now, app developers ignored the platform. Instagram never came. Snapchat never came. Young consumers chose glass slabs over clicking keys. The company tried to reinvent itself in 2016 by exiting the hardware business entirely. It stopped making phones. A Canadian software company emerged from the ashes of Research in Motion. BlackBerry Limited turned to cybersecurity and software for cars. General Motors used BlackBerry's QNX operating system in its vehicles. The name that once meant smartphone now lived under dashboards. In 2022, the company shut down its legacy phone operating system. Millions of old BlackBerrys became bricks overnight. The final servers went dark. What remains is a cautionary tale written in square screens and plastic keys. The company that pioneered push email and thumb typing could not adapt to a touchscreen world. From a Waterloo startup in 1984 to a $60 billion peak in 2007 to less than 1% market share in 2015, the arc is brutal and fast, but the lesson endures. No empire is too mighty to fall. The BlackBerry keyboard now sits in museum cases. Visitors run their fingers over the buttons and smile. A generation remembers the satisfying click.